Right, we're recording. Hi.
Oh, hi, everyone. It's really lovely to be here. Thank you so much for reaching out and for the invitation to connect.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have a chat and like share our thoughts and experiences.
Absolutely. Well, so I'm Emily, the co-founder of eXXpedition, and we've also got Winnie and Sally here as well.
Yeah.
Joining us. So yeah, we're really, really happy to be here and love you to kind of fire away with maybe introducing yourselves and then and asking your questions.
Sure. So well, I guess I'll just start. So well, I'm Julie. I'm WoMars commander, and well, I'm from Switzerland. I'm not one of the founders of the WoMars. It's Lorraine and Marta. Marta, unfortunately, she couldn't join. She had to work. She had to work. But yeah, we're very excited to have developed this.
When there is a stressful situation, or well, the whole 2 weeks will be stressful. So I'm sure we will have time to figure this out. So yeah, that's the project we have with Inga.
So yeah, so we'll have like a pre-mission assessment of our psychological state, and then during like every day during the 2 weeks of the mission, and then we'll have post-mission assessments as well. And this is part of a long-term monitoring project that's been going on at the University of Iowa for a few years now. But I think it's the first all-female data that they will collect, so it was interesting for them. So anyway, so apart from this common project, we each of us have individual projects. Maybe we can like talk about them a bit later if we have time. But I think the two main objectives of WoMars on a broader perspective is, first, we wanted to develop these recurring all-female missions. So every year we would like to send other crews, not necessarily ourselves, but if we can gather other women involved in space sciences and send them in other research facilities so that they can really gain field experience. And also we have the other women empowerment aspect that we really would like to develop. So not focus on space exploration and space sciences for sure, but in the STEM, in the science and technology fields as well. So that's why we all thought that at Expedition you would have very relevant experience to share in both aspects. So if you want to take the lead and introduce Expedition for us.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. It sounds fascinating and such an amazing experience that you're going to have in February. And I'm sure all the things that you'll learn in the run up to it as well. I think probably one of the things I've learned over the years of running these expeditions is that like getting actually to the start line is probably the hardest bit. And it's all of that planning and preparation and getting yourselves ready. When you actually get there, it's a bit like, oh, thank God we're actually here. We can do what we wanted to do now. And if you've done the planning right, you'll, just be ready for it, and it'll be really exciting. So eXXpedition, we set it up in 2014, and it was an accumulation of a few years of really understanding the plastics issue and more to the point, the lack of what we know about the plastics issue. There were so many holes in the research. There was so much more that we needed to know, particularly on how we solve the problem, that we decided we need to set up an organisation to do that, but also to achieve some other things as well. And I think, eXXpedition, there's obviously the really strong scientific goals. And back then, I had the science as a really, really important element of this whole thing, which it still is today. But I think what I didn't realise initially, and what I learned over those first few voyages, is how important the other aspects are as well, which are the communications and the storytelling, and also the kind of like what this means next piece. And when we got back from that very first voyage in 2014, I remember getting to the dock thinking like it was all over. You know, we'd done our 3 weeks, the equivalent of your 2 weeks at sea, and we thought it was finished. But I remember getting to the dock thinking, today feels like day one, because of all the things that we discovered on this voyage that we never really realized we were going to think, because you don't know what you're going to think till you get there. And then since then, the project's actually grown and grown to what it is today. So at the moment, we're partway through eXXpedition round the world, which is this endeavour to sail around the planet to visit 4 of these 5 gyres, the accumulation zones, where the plastic eventually ends up through the ocean currents. But to take along with us 300 women, 10 at a time on board, to do the scientific work, to do the storytelling side of things, and to, you know, then be able to take that change back home to the communities that all of these amazing women from across the globe, from different sectors, all live in and work in when they get back home. So that's a little bit about how it began and what it is that we do. I won't say too much more, though, because I want Sally and Winnie to chime in on some of your questions.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, you just said that you had a very strong scientific background and goals behind this. How do you communicate the science? Do you go to conferences? Do you publish? How do you do it?
Winnie, do you want to, our science lead, take it away?
Yeah, sure. We try and feed out that information through a wide range of different platforms. So obviously, as a scientist, communicating through peer-reviewed publications is important, and also at scientific conferences. And we're due to speak at one next month to communicate some of our results. But also, it's also important to try and share that to the wider public and translate that scientific jargon that not everyone's going to sit and read through into something that's easy to understand for the general public, for children, and also for policy. Because, of course, each of those kind of speaks their own language almost. So we do lots of outreach events, we do lots of public talks, school talks, but also communicating through the different social media platforms, interviews and articles. So I think we have many strings to the bow on that one, and that really drives home that message to all the different people that need to hear it.
I have a quick question for you, if it's okay with you. First off, I'm such a big fan of eXXpedition. It's a great endeavor. I love what you do. Could you give us an example or two of scientific experiments you've led during the last expedition?
Yeah, so doing Round the World, we're looking at the distribution of plastics kind of throughout the ecosystem. So from the surface of the water, through the water column, and also down to the seafloor. Because, of course, we know that not all of the plastic stays at the surface. But the ocean is very hard, I think, for people to understand. They look at it and you see this two-dimensional flat object, and you don't necessarily think about the great depth below that surface. So I guess there are parallels there to space. You just see this vastness far away, and it's trying to communicate that there's so many things happening. But then we're also looking at different scales. So not only looking at the plastics within the water column, but also whether or not we can detect large plastic floating on the surface using satellite imagery with some partners, but also down to the really small on what types of bacteria and viruses actually colonize the surface of those microplastics, the small pieces, and how that might influence the animals that live there, but also us that are exposed to those microplastics. So we have quite a range of different projects on board. Some happen during the entire voyage around the world, and then some happen in specific locations.
Nice, excellent, thank you. And how does it, so all the volunteers that you get on board, do they all have like scientific backgrounds? Do they all have like a preset research in mind, or did they collaborate with your own research?
We have a whole range, and one of the main aims of kind of premises behind eXXpedition is to have a multidisciplinary crew. So you don't have to be a sailor or a scientist to be able to go and carry out the work that we're doing and achieve the mission. So we have teachers, we have people that work in industry, we have policymakers, all coming on board, because we know that actually, going back to the communication piece, we need to communicate our findings at all levels of society. So if we've only got scientists on the boat, we're missing out loads of information from lots of other people around the world, and in different disciplines, to be able to really harness that expertise and knowledge. And also putting together a mixed crew allows us to, you know, have some really rich conversations about what some of the different solutions might be and how we might communicate the message differently to different groups of people. So it's kind of multifaceted in its purpose. And Winnie and the team have put together a really strong science program that's also been fine-tuned over the voyages that we've done over the past 5 or 6 years, along with responding to kind of current science that, you know, allows everyone to follow those protocols and contribute in a robust manner so that we can get some comparative and useful data. Or we hope it's useful anyway, Winnie.
Nice, thank you. And so how is it to work in such a small workspace, and being all women? Have you ever worked in mixed crews before? Could you tell the difference, like, between the all-female dynamic and a mixed gender dynamic?
Yeah, maybe it's easiest for me to answer that, because before I started eXXpedition, I ran a lot of voyages that were mixed. And it is different. I wasn't expecting it to be different. To be honest, we had so many amazing women on board in the mixed cruise, which was part of what inspired me to think, hang on, we could do this without the boys. So let's try that and see what happens. Coupled with the fact that I'd had a blood test, found out I had these chemicals in my body that we were finding in the ocean, and then started to understand the relevance of those chemicals for women because of how they can affect pregnancy, and we can pass them on to our children. So it was all of those things together which kind of conjured up the reasons that I wanted to start this all-female mission. But I really wasn't expecting it to feel that different. I think the ways it surprised me is the kind of the bonding of the crew on board. And I think we always had a great time with the mixed crews. There weren't really any issues in any way, but there was something about bringing a team of women together, particularly in such a challenging environment. Typically the first few days on board, everybody gets pretty seasick. And you feel like you're at your absolute low because, it's such an unfamiliar environment. You're feeling pretty dreadful and you're trying to look after everyone around you, and fight your way through it. And I think there's something about going through a really tough experience with people, but the way girls respond to that was actually quite different to a mixed crew. And there was just immediately this kind of camaraderie. We're all in this together. We don't really mind exposing our vulnerabilities to each other because we're all feeling crap and let's help each other get through this. And that just made these incredible sort of friendships and bonds. When you're holding someone's hair back as they're vomiting over the side, it's amazing what that does for, your friendship. And those tough times are really important. And girls deal with that well. And I think then those bonds, they just grow stronger. There's also what we're seeing when we're out there. It can be quite hard hitting when you pull up a sample and it comes up full of plastic, and you pull out a fish and you find plastic in its stomach, and these experiences that kind of hit you, and you've got this support network there. with you as you go through that, and you're getting to know each other. And I think what happened on the all girls trips that didn't happen on the other voyages is that sort of working out, okay, well, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do with this energy and this community and this power that we have together in a way that I hadn't seen before? So it's exciting.
Very exciting. Very interesting. And so all of us, all the crew, we haven't been able to meet in person because of COVID. So we were wondering if you always try to meet all the volunteers before you go on your expedition, or how do you create bonds before leaving, making sure that, you know, everybody gets along?
Sally?
Yeah, it's really tough. So I have the actually really enjoyable job of reading all of the applications, watching all of the application videos, and trying to carefully curate these crews of 10 women that I've never met before in person, think about their skill sets so that we've got a variety of skills, but also think about if they're going to get on well personality-wise on board. So it takes a fair bit of time to kind of put those crews together. The thing that really ties everyone together is their passion for wanting to find out more about the issue, wanting to go on a bit of an adventure to do it, but also wanting to really enact change when they get back on land. So everyone with that passion kind of does bring everyone together. They don't meet in person. We've got women joining the voyage from all over the world, so it just becomes impractical to have in-person meetups. We've tried. We had an amazing summit this time last year where we brought lots of our crews together, but we tend to do calls like this where we're meeting, we're introducing each other, we're coming up with our game plan of what we're going to do on board, and then, you know, having general communications online, sharing ideas, and then generally when all of the crew arrive in the destination, we try and get them there a couple of days before they set sail so that everyone's in the right place, ready to go. And more often than not, they've all been in touch with each other and they're all off having dinner somewhere or getting to know each other. So yeah, it works quite well. And it is a challenge, but that's part of the fun, that you've got this amazing group of women who you are yet to find out about. And that's part of the adventure as much as setting off into an unknown environment. So yeah, I'm sure all of you will be fine.
Yeah, that's good news for us. And please, if anyone else has other questions, please stop me.
I actually have on a practical aspect. Does eXXpedition own a boat? And for how long does the missions usually go? For how long, like you were talking about the 10-woman crew, for how long do they go? And money-wise, but then I think Julie will bring this up later on.
Yes. So in terms of the boat, so the first few years we worked with a partner company who they had the boat and we were able to then just use it when we needed it. When we set up around the world needing a boat the whole time, we did get our own, which is currently in Tahiti, waiting for us to come and find it again next year. And so that's allowed us then to do this much bigger project. On board, the 10 women are there for between 1 and 5 weeks, depending on where the voyage is, whether it's a short coastal trip or across an ocean.
Amazing, thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. Do you have like crews that go more than once or twice, or like recurrent crews?
Yes, we do have, so our core professional crew stay on board. So that's either myself, Winnie or Sally are always on the boat with a 3-person professional sailing team. So in total, there's always 14 on the boat. And then of those 10, we have had people come back like a year later or something and do it again because they want to go and explore a different part of the world and be part of the project for longer.
Okay.
And you said you had more than around 300 volunteers coming to your expeditions. Do you still have contact with all of them? Do you follow their the change they want to to bring to, I don't know, the world, you know?
Yeah, Sally, do you want to do this one?
Can do. I was just thinking about one of the biggest legacies we build is the amazing people that we have on board and what they go on to achieve when they get back on land in whatever sphere of influence they might have. It might be them talking to friends and family. It might be them changing legislation in their local government around single-use plastic. And we are still working on building our kind of network of support. We've been relatively small to date. So you've kind of been able to, you know, be in touch with everyone on a relatively regular basis for those people that are still keen to be involved. And we're growing as an organisation, and we're having more and more women on board. We're looking at using kind of online platforms to be able to connect people and bring them together and get projects, really zoom in on different projects and different aspects and get people going off out and telling their story and using their skill or superpower, if you like. Every single one of us has an amazing set of skills or something that's unique to us that, you know, allows us to really make a difference. And where that intersects the issue and the solutions is kind of where everyone has the biggest opportunity to make a difference. And we very much explore that when we're on board, and then everyone kind of steps ashore. And as Em said, when she first stepped ashore after that first voyage, a lot of people do feel that it's just the beginning when you get on land. You've had this amazing experience, and then it's how do you take that forward as an individual to, you know, really make a difference. And yeah, we are in touch with as many people as we can be, and those that are still interested, because obviously people's lives move on as well. So, and then sometimes they come back to us a few years later. So it's really a great community.
Excellent, thank you. Lauren mentioned money issues before, which is very relevant to us right now. So in scientific research definitely needs funding, and especially if you need a boat or specific facilities. And we are currently trying to collect money to just, basically just pay our plane tickets to the station. But when you started in 2014, what was the main funding source that you got? Was it from universities or from the industry, or was it from like crowdfunding platforms? How did you do it?
Yeah, a bit of a combination of all of the above. The project feels very crowd-funded generally, because as an organisation, we don't have one central source. We have many sources, and then even within those smaller sources, they come from many sources. So our funding model is a combination of sponsorship, although that's only been in recent years. When we started in 2014, we only had in-kind sponsors. So people would donate things that we needed, but not the money, and which was helpful, to cover some of what we needed. And then the rest of the funds came from the crew themselves, who all fundraised a portion of the costs that kind of all add up to make it happen. And they did that through either reaching out to local businesses to support them, or doing their own crowdfunding within their community, the people that they know. And a big part of, I think, making that type of funding successful is having a strong narrative, something that people, because you're basically asking, people in your community, or maybe people that you have some connection with, even if it's not a direct connection, like it's a local business where you live or where you work. It's giving them something that intrigues them, something that they can follow, and then making sure that you're offering something in return, which is usually a great story. But maybe you can come home and you can, give a talk for them. You can send them a postcard on the way. You can, there's all sorts of things you can do to kind of bring it to life. But Winnie might have some more ideas specifically on the science side of funding that might be useful to hear.
Yeah, the science is difficult too. So once you've gone out and got your data or samples, what do you plan on doing with it? Are you analysing that data in your respective places, or are you sending it to other people?
The the main project, the psychological data that we're going to collect, we're just the guinea pigs. So we're not analyzing it. We're just going to give it to this long-term monitoring program. But then, for example, for my research in astrobiology, I would collect samples of rocks around the station, and then I will take it back to my university for like further analysis. And yeah.
Personally, for me, so my project is about the design of an airship, of a Martian airship. I do it in parallel with Alice. And so all of the research and all of the study will happen before the mission. And we will not be able, as you can imagine, to take a prototype of an airship with us to the station. And it wouldn't even be relevant, as it wouldn't reflect the Martian conditions with the atmospheric condition and the gravity. So mainly for my project, for example, contrary to Julie's, once I'm physically at the MDRS at the station, I will work mostly on the robotic modules, which so I'll take care of the maintenance of the subsystems and the systems and the habitats, but that is all for me.
But there are some publications. I mean, I will work on one publication at least, and others will not be able to. But yeah.
Yeah, often you can try and squeeze in that work to existing things that you have on and just squeeze a bit of time and to work on other stuff. But it can be challenging unless you've got money or resources allocated to that already. And of course, every country has their own system of funding. Although Europe has a fund, so you could get in on a general European strategy. But yeah, it's so variable that I think general advice might not really be that applicable in this case. But some fascinating research, and I look forward to seeing the results.
I mean, you're a postdoc, you said, you mentioned, right? Yes, so you understand how difficult it is to get funding in the research field. You know, it's so hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy because like the project Alice and I are leading, for example, it's amazing. It implies we have the help and support of an astronaut, space astronaut, and we have a student who's taking on his master's project, his semester project on this design. So we have a lot of manpower, you know, and we have institutions behind us and everything, but financially, technically, we have €0 on it, you know. I mean, we are creating contacts and networks that might help us on the long term, and they did. The Mars Society Switzerland got involved. I mean, so eventually you do, but we have this great project, and the financing is €0, you know, so it's hard.
But those networks are really useful as well, and, you know, hopefully further down the line, it'll pay its dividends by having those resources and contact base, and opportunities will present themselves.
Definitely, yes. And I'm like Julie, I'm hoping to publish an article at the end of it. So
so to talk a little bit about the daily life on a boat or in a very confined environment in general, would you have any examples of routines that do you preset some routines, like you all wake up at the same time and then you have, I don't know, like 30 minutes of meditation all together, or you have breakfast all together and then you go do your science on your side? What would be the daily routine?
Yeah, you go, Sal.
Okay, well, if we all woke up at the same time and went to bed at the same time, then there'd be a long period of time when no one was sailing the boat. So we have to kind of organise, as we're out at sea, we need to be sailing for all 24 hours of the day. So we organise ourselves into watch teams. So we have 3 or 4 people in each team, and we run what we call a watch pattern, like a shift pattern. So we do 4 hours on and 8 hours off. So everyone does kind of, 4 hours during the day, but then we have a split watch, a dog watch in the afternoon of 2 hours and 2 hours, so that the pattern kind of shifts on a 3-day rotation. So, you're not doing the same shift every day. Those that love a sunrise watch, like myself, get to do it every third day. And so, yeah, that really allows us to kind of maintain not just a bit of decorum on board in the sailing, but also having that level of organisation makes living in such a small space a lot easier as well. So we'll generally, breakfast will be a kind of serve yourself during the morning hours, and then we're all up by midday, whatever night watch we've been on, and we all have lunch together. Then during the afternoon watches, we carry out some science or some workshops, and again we eat dinner at 6. Then we wash up from dinner, and we kind of divide the chores as well. So the watch team that cooks up, the next watch team the next watch team washes up. And so therefore, you know, in the morning watch cleans the boat, so that it just keeps ticking over as a kind of really useful, really productive way of running a ship. Keeps a tight ship, they say.
How do you build a small team of 3 or 4?
Well, we kind of look at different people. So we try and, again, get a bit of a mix in those teams. So if we do have people with sailing experience on board, we try and put those people in different teams. If we have scientists on board, we put those people in different teams, because actually when you're on watch, particularly during night watch, a lot of the time you're up on deck and you can have some really rich discussions. So we try and, again, like we're curating the team of women coming together on board as a whole, we're thinking about who goes with who in those watch teams. And then, really importantly, where they sleep. So we've got a bunk bed situation going on, and when it's not your watch, you don't want to be trodden on by the person that's getting up for their watch. So we organise the sleeping arrangements as well. So they're kind of in pods of watch teams, so that we minimise disruption to, you know, everyone on board. And when you do have your sleep time, you are in your bunk managing to get some sleep, because it's tough work being on a boat, and you need to make sure that you look after yourself as well.
Really interesting.
I think just relating to that, how do you monitor health of the members, participants?
Well, it's kind of, as Emily was saying, it's keeping an eye out for each other, but very much our role as mission leaders on board is making sure that you are checking in with everyone, and, you know, that, you know, you have that open conversation, that if someone's not feeling great, whether that's mentally or physically, you know, you can check in and have those conversations and support them in whatever way they need. And yes, we have this watch pattern, but if someone's absolutely exhausted because they've been up all night being sick because they're suffering from seasickness, then, you know, you've got great camaraderie on board by the fact that other people that aren't feeling seasick step up and support them in their role and take a bit more on. And that's happened on every voyage I've been on so far, without me really having to ask about it too much. It's just kind of happened and been a really great ethos that you set up at the beginning of your mission that then, you know, follows through into everything that you do, because actually it's the people on board, whether it's a spaceship or a boat in the middle of the ocean, it's those people that are going to make it what it is. Like, it can be really tough at times, and you can all have, if we've got a storm in the middle of the night and people have less sleep, or, you know, sometimes, as Emily said, it can be really shocking when, you know, you are picking up all this plastic. But it's about the effort and the kind of mindset that really makes a difference when you're on the boat.
Are you planning on using any kind of technology to track your, like, physical health?
Well, we don't know yet. Okay. I'm working on that.
Yeah, because I think we don't use it on our boat, but there's the Volvo Ocean Race where they sail around the world racing, and it's, you know, much, much more physical and demanding racing than the type of sailing that we do. They do a lot of this kind of monitoring, looking at sleep patterns and things like that. And I think they actually worked with one of our partners, SAP, a tech company, to develop that software, and we could probably find out a bit more about that and pass on some details to you, because I think for what you're doing, it could be actually really quite interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question. sorry, Julie.
No, go for it, Paula. Go for it.
Sally, you said that you managed to divide the groups. So if a group of people wants to go in the boat, what happens? They cannot go all together in the same crew and the same travel.
You mean if they... So, yeah, generally when people come on board, they don't know each other. Although, you know, often if people might happen to live near each other or met up beforehand, then, you know, they might form stronger bonds. But I personally, I don't know if Winnie or Emily have, I personally haven't ever had anyone say, apart from when I used to teach in schools, on the boat, I've never had anyone say, I don't want to work with that person. Everyone seems really open to working with whoever they can. And we're all in such close proximity anyway that you are working with everybody. And I know particularly on the longer voyages, quite often we will rotate the watch groups as well. So, you know, we'll be in one group for a week and then we might switch it around so that people can have different conversations with different people on board so that they have those opportunities to do that when they're on watch. So it kind of comes down to how the voyage is going, who the mix of people are, and as much as you can plan for something, a lot of it happens in the moment, as like the discussion happens in the moment. So, yeah, there's definitely room for, you know, looking at something and saying, actually, that person will get on really, we'll have some really good conversations with that person. Let's, you know, put them together to see what ideas and solutions they might come up with in our case.
Okay, but I was thinking like a group of people like us. If we want to apply, what happens? Do you split us up or all together?
Okay.
No. I was just thinking, yeah, if a group of people want to go.
Yeah, so we try and mix it up. So we've got a mixture of different people. Obviously, we have in the past, or I know Emily has in the past, run voyages that might be corporate voyages. And so you've got people all from the same company, for example, that want to come on board. So there is scope to be able to do that. But I think one of our aims around the world is to really have as many different women on board as possible so that they can go out when they get back on land to spread their message and affect change as wide as possible. So having everyone from the same friendship group or same village is going to minimise those chances to a certain extent.
But Sally does want an astronaut on every leg, so...
Yeah, I mean... Apply. We're still accepting applications.
No, but I was wondering because you said, that it's an individual video of each of the crew members, so that's why.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite... It's funny, it's never really crossed my mind so much, but we don't have, like, pairs or groups really applying. And like you guys have, so you all applied for your project as a team, is that right? Yeah, so you kind of found each other and then applied, whereas ours is quite different. Everyone is sort of an individual. And I suppose you somehow found all each other, though, as individuals. How did that happen?
Sorry, I didn't hear. Can you repeat?
Because you all found each other as individuals. How did you all form your team? Did you know each other beforehand?
Yes, it's quite a story actually. So as Julie mentioned, I initially founded the team with Marta, who's not here right now. And Marta and I never actually met. The only way we met was through LinkedIn. We had both applied for an astronaut training competition. So we had both put on those videos on LinkedIn and had gotten quite a little success. And as I was watching how to train astronauts, I saw this Mars Society station, and I was like, "Well, apparently you're going to play as a team. This girl seems motivated. I should ask her." And Marta was like, "Hell yeah, of course I want to come." So let's build a team. Having an all-female crew came up really quickly for the both of us. It's quite important for the both of us and for the rest of the team to have female representation in STEM. So as soon as we founded the team, I was like, okay, so I've got this friend. She's a bit crazy, but she's really nice. She'll definitely. That's how Julie came on board. Julie and I met. We go back since 2012. We met as students. And then Marta brought in Paola and Christina, whom she had met through university. So Paola and Christina haven't met each other neither, actually. Paola met Marta in the bachelorate in nanotechnology. And Christina met Marta later on, master's at Cranfield, right? Yeah, and Alice was actually the latest addition to our crew. We had actually an Australian girl coming to join us, but because of the COVID situation, she had to let go because she couldn't possibly come to the US in February 2021 because Australia is very strict on the borders. And I had met Alice I was an intern at the European Space Agency. She was and still is working there, and we had a great connection. We have the same mindset, her and I. So I asked her if she wanted to join, and she happily said yes. About 0.1 seconds after I asked her.
Amazing. Well, I suppose our teams come together a bit more like how your team has come together. Not quite as many like connections, but I mean, we put the application out there, and initially when we started, it was a bit more like that. Everyone knew someone sort of vaguely through someone else. Now, because it's become such a global project and we have so many applicants, it's, there's a lot more kind of degrees of separation between everyone. But in a similar way, we're a whole bunch of individuals that kind of come together to form a team. Yeah. Cool.
I had one more question. It's more about the plastic science that you're doing. Since 2014, did you see any change? Did you see a change in how people get involved in this issue, or how they are interested, or does it, can you see an evolution in the mindset of people regarding plastic?
Yeah, Winnie, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely been a really big increase in the public's awareness through a number of different reasons. But of course, the documentary Blue Planet 2 that was back in 2017, it was first aired, that really brought it to a huge public crowd. But yeah, I think when I started plastics research, which was around the same sort of time, back in 2013, 14, there was so many unknowns, and it was quite rare to find people talking about it or other people researching it or caring about it. And over the subsequent years, it's, you see news articles all the time, especially in the UK and in parts of America. There's a lot of news articles about it. There's a lot of public awareness, but also lobbying for change to try and remove single-use plastics, remove unnecessary items. So I definitely think it's increased a lot. And I think it's also gone up the policy agenda compared to how it was. I mean, there's obviously still a huge amount of work to be done, as there are on many other environmental issues. But I think it is in everyone's awareness much more than it used to be.
Following this question, I would like to ask, and in terms of plastics and your investigation, do you see the horrible revolution, I guess?
I mean, for me, I'd never visited one of these ocean gyres until last year with eXXpedition. So as Emily touched on at the beginning, these are these large accumulation zones in each of the oceans where plastic and other debris accumulates because of the ocean currents. And you sail through them and they're beautiful, blue, inviting, tropical water. And then we put our trawl in the water that goes, it's like a big sieve, it's a fine net, and it goes through the surface, and you pull up literally a confetti of plastics. And that's the challenge, because for us, it's very hard to see microplastics with your naked eye. So whilst people are aware of straws or styrofoam cups or takeaway food containers, all of these break apart into smaller and smaller pieces. And to all intents and purposes, they've gone because you can't see them. But yeah, that first trawl that we did through the North Atlantic Gyre was a really eye-opening experience, even for me, who's been researching plastics for a long time. So for some of our crew members, it's really, really moving experience. And we were about 1,000 miles offshore and we found a plastic spoon floating. And you think of something that's so personal, so connected to a human, and yet we're so far from land. So how long has that been out there? Where's it come from? Who was eating their, I don't know, soup with it? It's that connection and trying to really connect something so far away as the ocean, which isn't in a lot of people's minds. Perhaps if you live in a city, you feel very disconnected from nature, from the ocean. But it's our actions on land that actually contribute to that problem. So it's gelling those up. And again, many parallels in space. It's, again, this thing that's really far away, and how do you bring that to people to make them care and make them excited?
Thank you.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. And I think, do you have any other questions? No? Okay, well, I have last one. So what would be your vision for eXXpedition in the long term?
Great question. And probably quite topical for us to be thinking of at the moment with so many global changes, that I think it's a question we're all asking ourselves, whatever we do, whatever line of work we have, is, what does that vision forward look like? I mean, our mission really, it's obviously about plastic pollution and really trying to tackle the sources in particular of how we stop more plastic getting out into the ocean. But the way that we've always done our work is, and probably what you're getting a vibe on this call, is that a lot of it is about the people we work with. That's our mode of change. It's about having these extraordinary experiences when you go to sea and you get completely taken out of your normal environment into this completely unfamiliar space, and everything that happens when you do that scientific work, when you really understand what's going on and the bonds you form and what you go on to do afterwards. And so certainly for us, that's our vision, and that's what we want to keep working on over these next 5 to 10 years. How we do it, I'm sure will change and evolve as it has done over the years, but particularly now with the challenges we face around travel, to help us in both connecting with people, but also in solving the problem on, whether it's our science that informs supply chains, or whether it's a hub that we set up to allow our community to interact with each other. A lot of it does come down to technology. So ultimately, we want more people finding their role in tackling the plastics issue. And the way we do that is going to come in many different shapes and forms.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've already started to look at moving part of our emphasis online from earlier on this year. On World Oceans Day, we launched the Shift.how platform, which has hundreds of different solutions that anyone can access and think about what their role is in the plastic pollution issue as well. So although, yes, we're very much about, as Emily said, the extraordinary experiences stimulating action and change, there's space within that as well for technology to help support an even wider community to look at how they can contribute to the solution too.
And apart from the science, your crews are all female, so there's a women empowerment aspect behind eXXpeditions. So how do you include that in the science, or how do you reach out to other women to come do science to tackle these issues like ocean plastics?
Winnie or Sally, do you want to do that one or shall I?
I mean, I just don't think it's been a problem finding women that are interested in wanting to get involved would be my answer. Kind of, actually, we've had thousands of applications for around the world, and everyone that's applied has had an interest in the science as part of finding out more about it so that it can feed into the solutions of what we can do to try and mitigate this environmental degradation that we're creating as a species. So actually, I'd say we haven't had any problem finding women that are interested and keen, whether they're scientists or whether they're people that work in different fields that want to contribute towards the science as a citizen scientist, or to find out more about the science as well. So, I mean, it's kind of a refreshing answer to kind of see that actually there's so many people kind of chomping at the bit wanting to come and get involved and contribute towards something that's, you know, really worth contributing towards.
And
I think... Oh,
you go, Winnie.
I think for me, a really big part of it is being a role model for future generations as well. And that's what I'm super passionate about, getting girls into science from a young age, into any of the scientific subjects. So I by no means think that I'm the best role model for them, but the very fact that we're changing perceptions on the stereotypical image of a scientist. You know, I've even had people in interviews say to me, "Oh, you don't look like a scientist." So trying to challenge what a scientist looks like, who a scientist is, what background they come from, is a really important element of the project as well.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar, but Winnie put it perfectly. But I think what I was going to say is, one of the best things I think you can do to empower other women is to do it and just to lead by example. And one of the things we do at eXXpedition, I realise we've got a double X in our name and it sort of screams all women, but we don't actually talk about it that much. You know, we talk about plastic, we talk about really seriously doing the science and solving the problem. And yes, we're all women doing it. And it's almost sometimes just as powerful when you don't speak about it the whole time, but you're just out there doing it. And it's not something that even needs to be mentioned because it's just normal that you're women doing it.
That's a good point. I think we should definitely learn from. Definitely, because this is something that can be reproché. How do we translate it? But you've just said it perfectly. You know, this is not about the woman card. It's about science and space exploration and exploration in general and plastic. And it's not about women. I think it's. I really agree with what you just said. I mean,
great. Oh, well, it's been so lovely getting to know you all.
It was. Thank you so much for answering all our questions.
Thank you.
And we've put some of your questions out to some of our guest crew that have come on board as well. So we'll share those videos with you when we get them back.
That would be so great.
You can have a bit more of a perspective.
Yeah,
we love that. Thank you so much.
Nice. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks so much and good luck with all of your preparations. And we can't wait to follow your journey and to see how everything goes. What's the best way to follow what you're up to?
Facebook. I think it would be Facebook. Yeah, Instagram. Yeah. Yeah.
And is that at WoMars?
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. Well,
exactly.
We'll follow along there and encourage others in our network to check you guys out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And if one day you receive 6 applications to go on an expedition, that's normal.
I'll make sure I'm on that voyage, don't you worry.
One video with 6 people.
Yeah. Amazing. Sounds great. Let's make it happen.
I think it would be a bit of spatial research, no? Like how your figures and your stats are in the space station and how they are on the boat. That would be a great bit of comparative science.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.